Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this reversible triangle pendant, learning how to do a herringbone and peyote stitch on one side, and then how to create a peyote bezel on the other side with a flashy crystal. Keep in mind, if you need any materials, check out the links below me. Also, as you're watching the video, don't forget to hit the little subscribe button so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads. So I'm going to be bezeling an 18mm Potomac Crystal Triangle. And I have a bezel here already done to show you how we're going to be doing it. It's actually reversible. You can wear it as a triangle or you can flip it over for that added little glitzy surprise. The other thing that's important of this is that it actually protects the back of the crystal so it doesn't rub and affect the actual foil backing on the crystal. I have two different colors of Delica beads that we'll be using to start our triangle, and then we're going to build up the sides of the triangle. This can work for other shapes as well if you want to create a square and build on from there. I've done a YouTube video on that with a cushion bead. What I have here is a size 12 needle on some 0.06 wildfire beading thread in the green color. I'm going to begin with what I'm going to call the spine, or that triangle shape. The triangle is going to begin with two different Delica colors. I have the Delicas, and we're going to be using this Duracoat Galvanized Eggplant color, and that is DB1850. And I'm going to be using the Delica Bronze Luster 254. On this 5 feet of beading thread, I'm going to add three of my eggplant colored Delicas. Letting them drop down towards the bottom of the thread, I'm going to sew back through all 3 of those Delicas. Leave just about 1.5 to 2 inches at the end of the thread that you can go back and kind of tie a knot on. When you pull nice and tight, these 3 beads will sit in a triangle shape. That triangle shape we're going to expand on even more. We're going to be doing herringbone stitch and then peyote stitch as well. If you need more help with these triangles, you can also look at my video for doing the triangle shapes. In between each one of my 3 beads here, I'm going to add 2 more beads. I'm going to add 2 more purple and sew through the next purple in line. Add 2 more purple and sew through the next purple in line. These are going to start sitting in a V shape, opened up in that herringbone scallopy look. 2 more go on, and I'm going to sew back through that last of the original 3 Delica beads. As I sew through the last of that original 3 Delica beads, I'm going to give a nice tight pull and make sure all of my seed beads are cooperating and my thread's not twisted anywhere. From here, I'm going to step up, going through the first out of the 2 beads that I added in my first section as I went around a second time. That's going to be called stepping up. You're constantly going to be stepping up to add the next layer on as you progress. From here, in between these 2 purple beads that are sitting at that angle, I'm going to add 2 more of my purple Delicas. Coming out between 1, add 2, sew down through the second bead in that grouping of 2. Make those 2 that you just added sit correctly, kind of nice next to one another in, again, that V style right there. From here, coming out between my herringbone stitch, I'm going to pick up my nice bronze bead, and I'm going to sew through the first bead in my next set of 2. So that bronze bead is just going to kind of hang out in the middle right now. So I'm between my next grouping of 2, which was the second set of 2 that I added, and I'm going to add 2 more beads. I'm coming out through the top of bead number 1, and I'm going to sew down into bead number 2. Make those beads lay right next to one another and cooperate. And as you get bigger, you won't have to do that as much. It gets easier and easier. Coming out between my herringbone then, I'm going to add 1 of my bronze beads. And keep in mind, that's going to be the start of my peyote stitch too. and sew into the next of my 2 beads. Add 2 more. Coming out of bead number 1, I'm going to sew down bead number 2. Once I'm there, I let those fall over next to one another. Add in my last of my 3 beads around here of that iris color. And I'm going to sew back through that first bead that my thread was coming out of right now. Now you notice there's a second set of 2 on top because that's the ones I just added. As I come out of there, again, we're going to do that step up. I'm going to sew through bead number 1 of the first grouping of 2 that I added as I go around. Going around now again, you're going to constantly grow this pattern. You're going to be making it bigger and bigger into a triangle. On go 2 of my purple Delicas, down through bead number 2, because I'm coming out bead number 1. Make those cooperate and sit in that herringbone style. And now you're going to start to see this peyote really take shape. Grab your bronze bead, sew into the bronze bead that's already there. Add another bronze bead and sew into the herringbone section. So on the first go round, I added 1 of my bronze beads. Now I'm adding 2. You guessed it, next time around I'll add 3. 2 always go on for the herringbone stitch. I'm coming out of one corner of my purple bead and I'm sewing down into the other corner bead. On goes 1 bronze and I sew through the bronze that's already there. Add a bronze, sew through your corner bead, up through 1 bead, add 2 more of my purple, and down through the second one. From here then, you're finishing up this row, adding in 1 of my bronze, and then adding in another 1 of my bronze. Now remember, when you finish up and you're on your 3rd side, you're sewing into what seems like the second herringbone down. That's just finishing the row. Then remember, what we're going to do is we are going to step up into our first grouping of 2 between there, into that corner spine bead along the edges. So now you can see how that triangle is starting to take shape. And you can see with the green and the blue here how it's going to continue to grow. So you have your bronze in there growing as a triangle and your purple growing along the outside. I'm going to continue growing this, adding in my sides for my spine here, adding in those little herringbone rows. And then this time again, I'm always going to be increasing. So now I have 3 of my bronze beads that I need to add. After you add those 3 beads, again continue with what I call the spines, or your herringbone stitches that go down the rows of the triangle. I'm going to continue growing this triangle. Remember, again, if you need a little help, go ahead and watch the triangle video first to get an aid in a little bit more detail to build this base. So one thing you'll have to decide is how much of the triangle you want to see, or whether or not you don't really want to see the triangle at all. So I'm at the point where I have 8 beads that I added along my peyote row, and you can really see kind of the color difference of that nice iris color versus the purple now. And what I'm going to be doing, I made this a little bit bigger than my last one because I'm taking my crystal and putting it in here. I want to see a little bit more of the sides of my triangle, just to kind of add a little bit of flair to it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my 15-0 seed bead, and this is the Duracoat Galvanized Gold, and I'm going to go around 1 more time, adding in 9 of them. On the corners where you normally would put your purple, I'm just going to put in 1, 2, and 3 15-0 seed beads. Sew through the purple, just like if I was adding another row, and that creates a little tiny bit of a point there on the edge. Add in this time 9 of your bronze beads, and then when you get to the end of the row between the 2 Delica beads in that eggplant color, add 3 more of your 15 O's. So each of the corners, where here you see is a regular Delica on the sample piece, I'm going to add 15 O's to add a little brightness or gold to that outer edge. When I go in then and sit the crystal on top, you'll see a little bit of that gold peeking out from the violet crystal. Now I'm almost done creating my triangle, and you can see how it's going to kind of sit in the middle there of my crystal. And the one that's already done, you'll notice what we're going to do is basically 3-dimensional beading, where we're going to start doing peyote up the sides now. Now this bezel here I made a little bit bigger, so that way I see more of the back triangle as I'm working with it. I have 1 more of my Delica beads to add in, and I'm going to sew it in and go into that peyote, or that herringbone stitch there. And then rather than stepping up into the corners, what I'm going to do is actually sew down the Delica that sits right next to that one. So I'm sewing down through the purple one. And I want to go back to my 3rd row of my peyote stitch. So I'm going to go down through 1 more of my purple Delica beads. So basically sewing down 2 of those purple eggplant Delica beads. That's going to take me back into my 3rd row of my peyote stitch. So I have 1 here, which was my row where I added 9. Then I had my row where I added 8. And what I'm going to do is add to where I have my row of 7. I'm going to go back now and switch to my purple Delicas. I'm going to add 1 purple Delica, and I'm coming out of my purple herringbone stitch. I'm going to go through, lined up to there, my bronze bead Delica in that same 3rd row. That's going to sit this Delica right on top, so it, again, we're getting to do 3-dimensional beading. Adding another 1 of my purple. I'm doing peyote stitch, so I'm skipping over the next group of 2, basically, and I'm sewing into the next bead if I would draw a straight line across the peyote stitch below. And I put a bead in there. Again, sticking with my purple, you're looking here along the line, and there's 2 beads kind of side by side there. Then I'm going to sew into the next one, again, just straight in a row. So if I look at it here on the exterior, you can see those purple that are sitting directly in between that row. Purple goes on, sew through the next bead in that row. It's 4. Here's 5. So again, you're threading your beads are going to be in a straight line, going in between those peyote rows. 6, 7, and 1 more is going to be 8. As I add the 1 more, the last one here, I'm going to be going into the 2nd row of that herringbone stitch, the 2nd most outer row. So I add my bead on, and I'm going to sew into that 2nd most outer row. When I come out there on that 2nd most outer row, right there between, what I'm going to do is add 1 of my 15 O seed beads. And then I'm going to sew down through that same purple row of that herringbone bead down towards the next side. So there you see just gold and gold in the little point there. Again, now I'm going to do another series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of my Delica beads. And then when I get between these 2 herringbone beads here at the end of this other row, I'm going to add 1 of my 15 O's. We're going to go the whole way around our triangle, adding in this row of our Delicas. You can see how it's going to sit up 3-dimensional from there. So I'm here adding my last Delica for this row, sewing in again to that 2nd row down on the herringbone stitch purple, and in between the middle, I'm going to add my 15O in the champagne color, go back down through that same row of herringbone stitch, and then what we're going to do is step up. Just like we were doing on the herringbone, we're going to step up onto the first row of the peyote stitch. So we're stepping through the first bead of that eggplant color that we added in this row. Now you can see it looks like a little bump the whole way along the edge here as we start to do this beading. The triangle is going to sit perfectly inside that peyote bezel. I'm going to go around one more time with my purple color in the eggplant. So we're going to add, we're coming out of one of the eggplant beads there along the side. So we're kind of done with our triangle below. You're going to go through the purple that's already there. And you can see how it's going to create that start of the peyote stitch from here up. Purple goes on, go through a purple. Purple goes on, go through. So you're adding in your second row of your purple beads, which will look a little bit like a seamless line when you're looking at it. When you get to the corner, and I'm done through my row of my peyote stitch there, you can see right along the edge, and I'm here at the corner, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 15, sew through the 15 that's already there, add a 15, and sew through my purple bead. When you're looking at it, when you don't have the beads, you see purple, brown, purple, brown, purple, brown. We're filling in that brown, the bronze area, by adding a purple and sewing through the purple that's already there. I'm going to continue the whole way around the sides, adding in my next row of purple, 2 15s in between the 15 on the corners, and adding in then a setting basically for my triangle to sit inside of. When I'm done going around the sides with my Delicas, I come to the starter area and I'm going to add my 15, go through the 15 that's already there, add another 15, go through the 15 basically that is already there, or I'm sorry, the 11-0 that is already there, and step up. So here what I'm going to do then is come out through my Delica bead, stepping up, that was added in this last row. When I come out that Delica bead that was added in the last row, one thing I'm going to do right now is get rid of this starter thread. You'll notice that I have it in the interior or the middle. I'm going to take it, and it's not going to affect how my crystal is going to sit. I'm going to leave about 1/4 inch with my thread burner, and then burn that down flush against the project. It's going to make a little ball on the end of the thread, so that way it can't come unknotted, and also it's going to hide right inside my crystal as I add that in. I'm going to go around another time with my brown now. So I'm coming out of the first purple that I added in this second row, add a brown, and sew through. You're going to go the whole way around, sewing through, adding on one of these brown beads at a time. You're going to add a row of peyote stitch with the brown beads, and then as we get to the corner, what we're going to do is actually go through our gold beads, not adding any more, and skipping over from our first to our third gold bead. So again, here when I get to the corner, I'm adding my brown bead in. I'm going to sew into the 15 there, into that first 15, add one more 15, and then sew into 15 number 3. Do a nice little tight pull, and you'll almost get a diamond effect where your new 15 is sitting right on top of that 15 from the first round. Continue around, adding in your brown or your bronze color around the circle to get our next little row up there along the edge. As you're coming back around and adding in your last of your 15 O's, you're going to go through again, coming out of 1, you're going to go through 3, let that sit right in the middle there, adding your last of your brown beads or that bronze, sew up through that first purple bead that your thread was coming out of, as well as the first bronze bead, to do your step up. We're going to switch now to our Duracoat Galvanized 15O seed beads to get them to hold in place. So you can kind of push your Delicas off to the side, and we're going to switch to 15Os. We're going to go a whole row of 15Os, and then as we get to the end, you're going to join in here just your Delica, your 15 and your Delica without adding any extra beads. So I'm adding in my Delicas. I'm coming out, or I'm sorry, my 15-Os, my gold ones right along the side there. And obviously I have one to add back in since the step up is after that. I'm going to sew right through the 15-O and the next bronze bead. So coming out the bronze bead, not adding any beads, sew through the 15 that's already there and the next bronze bead. Continue on then, adding in a gold 15 between each one of your bronze beads. As I get to the third row, what I'm gonna do actually is drop my crystal in, because I wanna start using the 15-Os to pull this bezel in tight around the crystal to hold it in place. So you're going in, creating this whole row along the side. And then remember, as you get to the corner, you're gonna go through your last bronze bead, grab that 15-O that's already there that you just added, kind of sitting on that point of the diamond, and through your next bronze bead as you go over to the next side. Go ahead and throw your crystal in and start to kind of push the beads right along the interior of the crystal so that way they start to grip onto the crystal. I'm going to continue on, going up and adding my row of 15s here, and then we're going to go one more row of 15s and really pull this bezel in tight. Finishing up the first row of my 15-Os, I'm going through that first bronze bead that my thread was coming out of, and then I'm going to step up through the first gold bead that I added. Give a nice tight pull, and now this entire row around we're going to do 15-Os. When we're coming out the last 15-O there, we are going to go ahead and kind of bind the corner and bring it in even closer together. When you get to the corners and you're coming out that 15-O, you're going to add one more 15-O, grab onto that same 15-O, the last one that's there on the corner, pull nice and tight, get that to be sitting kind of right over top of the Delica, add one more 15-O, and go through the next 15-O on the other side. When you get to the other side, again, give a nice tight pull. Make sure they sit right in that nice little cornered section there, like I've already done on this first side. Keep going around them, adding in your 15-Os, getting them in close together. And having a nice go round of this second set. So I'm coming up one, kind of ending my last set here. You can see I have the crystal in there. I'm pushing down, making sure at this point your crystal definitely should be in, because if you've gotten to this point and you haven't put your crystal in yet, you're gonna have to relax and go back a row. When I get to the edge then, on goes 15, through the 15 that's already there. Give a nice tight pull to close up that bezel. Add a 15, go through that gold right there. Give a nice tight pull. Add in your last gold bead right along the edge there. You can see it looks like a missing tooth. Go ahead and add then, go through your 15 that's already there from row number 1, that first 15 that you put on. Give a nice tight pull, and your bezel there is set in the middle and looking beautiful and perfect. What I'm going to do is going to snake back, so there's no going anywhere with that bezel. You can see kind of the difference of staying 11-Os versus building it bigger and making the illusion that it's bigger than it actually is. What I'm going to do now is build onto my bail. To do that, I'm going to snake along the project, kind of turning along the side. Nice and tight. I'm going to go backwards now. And what I'm trying to do is I'm going to get to the corner of my design. So I'm going up along the side here, snaking back through. And the nice thing with the green thread is you really won't see it. I'm trying to get up to my nice corner bead. You may need to kind of poke your needle to the back as you get to the side here. And keep in mind, if you want to, you can go around the outer edge and add gold seed beads in there too to brighten up the outer edge if you want. And what I'm going to do is sew through to get my thread and needle so that they're coming up. You can see I'm having to wiggle my place. Sometimes the needle wants to go through, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, back it out a little bit. See where it wants to go. And sometimes one bead at a time is the better solution. Even though you want to go quickly up a couple beads, one bead is the way to go. All right, so where I want to get to start my bail is I'm going to start my bail basically at the back section of my herringbone. So I'm getting to the purple beads at the top of my herringbone. And you can do the bail in all different ways. So one way is not better than the other. It's just what you like the look of. If you want to, you could put a jump ring here or a wire guard here. I'm going to come again right out of the top of that herringbone stitch. So I'm coming out of that purple bead. From here, I'm going to sew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, let's do 12. 12 15-0 seed beads. Coming out there, I'm going to go the whole way down now to my gold bead that sits at the point that my triangle was connected to, and make a loop. From here then, 12 more beads get added. Cleaning up my bead mat, got my 12 beads on. I'm going to go back to that herringbone, and I'm going to go down through the purple bead that sits next to the purple bead that my thread was coming out of. So that last row of herringbone, and out. What that's going to do is bring those two loops right next to one another. Looks like a little heart, and I can slide my cord right through the middle there, right through that bail. You can also do a little herringbone bail and have that be in the middle. I could again have done a link right at the top. The other thing that you can do is bring these and put them together so it looks a little bit fuller if you want. I like the heart design. I'm going to keep them separate, but if you want to, you can sew them together by going back up through the seed beads, which we're going to do to reinforce anyway, back up through, down around, and reinforce along the back. If you do want to sew them together, what you're going to do is sew through about 3 beads and then circle around in a form or a fashion of a right angle weave, or I'm sorry, of a ladder stitch. You're going to sew kind of back around, back around, back around, and pinch those together to get that herringbone look. I like the look of them sitting like a heart, but I also want to show you how you add them together. You're going to sew up 3 beads and then circle back down through 3 on the other side. Back up through the next 3, circle down through 3 on the other side. So I'm coming out the top of those last 3, back through those. Back up through those 3 that my thread was coming out of. Go to the other side, through those 3. Again, that's the 3 on the right. Now I go to the next 3 on the left and sew back towards the back through those. Give nice tight pulls so you don't see a ton of extra thread as you link them together. Go in. You can also, if you want to, add a little flare, add a 15-0 between them. So down through the next 3. And that 15-0 just kind of sits like a little point at the top of your bail. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to take that guy off because I'm going to continue on with that bail. I'm going to go back a couple stitches because I do like mine as the heart shape, but that's how you would get to the bail if you do want it together at the top. So once you knot off the design and you can burn down the edges, you get to see how the pendant itself is reversible. So you have the triangle pattern on one side, which again is also protecting the back of the crystal, and then on the other side you have that nice crystal pendant. So you can go kind of from, we'll call it daytime to nighttime apparel and have fun kind of creating this nice crystal bezel. Thank you so much for joining me and hopefully getting ideas with this reversible triangle pendant. Remember, one side has that cool triangle, the other side is going to have that flashy crystal. You can make it as big or as small as you like, and also keep in mind, if you do want to, you can do this in other shapes as well, not just the triangle. Remember, comment below and let us know exactly what colors, what shapes, and what design modifications you're making. It's an awesome addition to this beading community and really helps other people watching the video out. Remember, you can also hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet to get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. Also, one more thing, remember, if you need any materials, click that link below me in the description to shop with us online. As always, thanks so much for watching and enjoy your reversible triangle pendant.